From the moment she threatens a terrified child with a death so specific it breaks him to the season, she finally writes down every name she's taken and can't stop counting. These are the times Carol wasn't the hero of her own story. And somehow, the higher this list goes, the harder it gets to call her the good guy. 10. Carol blames Rick for Sophia. Season 2. Carol isn't a fighter yet. She's a grieving mother, still raw from Ed, still learning what survival even looks like, which is exactly what makes what she does next so easy to dismiss and so hard to forget.
My little girl could have left her like this. Punishing in hell every but show mercy on her.
Sophia runs into the woods. Rick goes after her, does everything he can, and loses her in the chaos. And Carol turns that failure into an indictment. She doesn't rage. She doesn't break down. She points quietly, deliberately.
Oh Lord, there's 2 walkers after my baby.
And makes Rick carry something that was never entirely his to carry. Rick absorbs it. Because that's what Rick does. The group watches him take the blame without flinching, and nobody corrects the record. But here's what this moment actually reveals. Carol has already learned that grief can be weaponized. She doesn't know she's doing it yet. That's almost worse, because the Carol who learns to do it on purpose, that version of her is still coming. This ranks at number 10 because it's the seed.
Find her.
Her trail went cold. We'll pick it up again at first light.
You can't leave my daughter out there on her own to spend the night alone in the woods.
And the dark's no good.
It's not the darkest thing she does. It's the first thing. And the reason it belongs on this list at all is because it shows exactly who she's capable of becoming years before she becomes it. The moral framing is simple. A mother in pain misdirects that pain onto the one person trying hardest to fix it, and the show never quite holds her accountable for that. But what comes next isn't misdirection. It's a choice, cold, deliberate, and made without asking anyone. 9. Letting Mary get eaten at Terminus, Season 5. Mary has a story. She wasn't always a cannibal. She was someone who got broken by this world before Carol ever arrived. Someone who watched everything collapse and chose the only survival strategy left that worked. That context exists. Carol knows it exists. She lets Mary get eaten alive anyway.
Shit.
Carol opens the gate. Walkers pour through, and she just watches. There's no mercy kill, no quick end. She leaves Mary to be devoured slowly, horribly, in what passes for justice at Terminus. The group sees Carol as the hero of Terminus. She is the hero of Terminus. That's not in question. What's in question is the method. Killing Mary wasn't the villain act. How she kills her is. There's a specific kind of coldness in choosing the worst possible death for someone when a quicker option existed and calling it acceptable because the target was bad. The show gives Carol the heroism framing, but underneath it, she's making a decision that the governor would have made without blinking. This ranks above the blame shifting because it's no longer unconscious. Carol is in full control here, and she still chooses this. What comes above it isn't just cruelty toward an enemy. It's cruelty toward someone completely powerless. 8. Threatening Sam in the Armory. Season 5. Sam is a child. He's already living with an abusive father, already terrified of everything outside his bedroom walls. He stumbles onto Carol stealing guns, and instead of finding any other solution, Carol does the one thing guaranteed to break him further.
Promise me you can keep it secret that I came here.
But I'd have to tell my mom. I tell my mom everything.
She tells him exactly what it feels like to be eaten alive. Not implied, not vague, specific, graphic, delivered to a child who still has nightmares about his own house. She walks away. Sam stays silent. Carol gets her guns. And everyone treats it as a tactical win. The group never finds out. Rick never finds out. And Sam, a kid who just needed someone to be decent to him for one single moment, instead gets a description of his worst possible death lodged permanently into his head.
The monsters will come.
That fear is what kills him. Not the walkers, not the overrun of Alexandria. The voice in his head. Carol's voice is what makes him freeze when it matters most. His death has multiple causes, but this moment is the one that plants the seed. The moral reality is brutal. Carol used a child as a tool and discarded him the moment he stopped being useful. She never looked back, and the show barely holds her responsible for what that choice cost him. This ranks here because the victim is completely innocent. What lands above it involves people who at least had a fighting chance. 7. The cookie scene. Carol psychologically destroys Sam. Season 5, 6. Sam keeps coming back. That's the thing people forget. After the armory threat, he doesn't run from Carol. He seeks her out. He brings her drawings. He asks for cookies. He's a kid desperate for any adult who feels safe, and Carol is the one he chooses. So she does it again. Worse this time. Sam asks about monsters, about what happens to people who can't handle the world. And Carol looks at this frightened, fatherless boy who came to her for comfort and tells him that those people don't get to survive, that the monsters come for them in the night, and there's nothing left of them in the morning. She's not protecting anyone. There's no tactical reason for this conversation. She's just telling a child that he is going to die because he is weak. The group thinks Carol is managing Sam. What she's actually doing is confirming every fear he already had and giving them a shape he can't unsee. When Alexandria gets overrun and Sam freezes in the street, calling for his mother, unable to move, getting devoured while the whole group watches Carol's voice is already inside that moment. She put it there, in a kitchen, over cookies. The moral weight here is staggering. Carol didn't just scare a child she authored his death months before it happened, and never once acknowledged the causality. The show mourns Sam. It never names Carol's role in building the version of him that couldn't survive. This ranks above the armory because the first threat was reactive. This one was chosen. But what comes above it isn't about a child at all. It's about two adults who never got a vote. 6. Killing Karen and David at the prison. Season 4. Karen and David are sick. That's it. That's their crime. They haven't turned. They haven't hurt anyone. They're quarantined. They're scared. And they're waiting to see what happens next, like everyone else in the prison who's ever been scared and waiting. Carol doesn't wait. She drags them out in the night, puts them down, and burns the bodies.
Worried about Lizzie and Yuka. You were around Patrick?
Karen and David will be separated till they feel better.
No counsel, no vote, no conversation with Rick, Herschel, Daryl, nobody. She decides alone that two sick people are an acceptable loss, and she makes that decision for every single person in the prison without their knowledge or consent. Tyrese finds the bodies. He doesn't know who did it. He grieves publicly, violently, in front of the whole group, and Carol watches him do it. For episodes. She watches him carry that grief and say nothing. The group is horrified. Rick banishes her for it. And the remarkable thing is that Carol doesn't argue the banishment because some part of her knows. But here's the moral cut that never fully lands in the show. Carol didn't just kill 2 people. She decided that her judgment about what the group needed was worth more than everyone else's combined. That's not protector logic. That's authoritarian logic. That's the kind of thinking that, in a different body, the show calls villainy. Tyrese forgives her. The show forgives her. But the act itself, 2 sick people, burned in the night, never stops being what it is. This ranks here because the victims had names, relationships, and people who loved them. What sits above it involves someone with even more power and even fewer checks on it. 5. Carol gets Rick banished. Season 4. Rick doesn't want to know. That's the first thing to understand. When he pulls Carol aside on the supply run and asks her directly whether she killed Karen and David, he's already doing the math.
Carol, did you kill Karen and David?
Yes.
He already suspects. He gives her the chance to frame it in a way he can work with. Carol doesn't take it. She confirms it, flatly, without apology. And Rick makes the call. He tells her she can't come back, and Carol gets in the car and drives away. Here's the part the show treats as Rick's decision, and never quite examines as Carol's consequence. Carol's act, not just the killing, but the decision to act unilaterally without any group input, creates a power vacuum in the prison's leadership structure at the exact moment a new disease is about to tear it apart. She leaves. Herschel carries the medical weight alone. The prison falls. The chain of causality is never drawn cleanly.
Damn it. You step outside, you risk your life. You take a drink of water, you risk your life.
But it's there. What makes this a villain moment isn't the banishment itself. It's that Carol spent weeks watching Tyrese grieve and said nothing protecting herself while her victim's partner fell apart in front of her. That's not hard choices survival logic. That's self-preservation dressed up as stoicism. The show frames her silence as burden-bearing, but silence that lets an innocent person suffer isn't noble. It's just silence. If one of the moments you were expecting hasn't shown up yet, don't worry, because this is where the list stops being about difficult choices and starts being about something the show almost never admits out loud. That Carol, at her most dangerous, isn't acting out of love. She's acting out of control. And if you're a Walking Dead fan who's spent years defending her, make sure you're subscribed. Because the top entries on this list are the ones that make that defense the hardest. 4. Carol tries to kill Morgan to get to the wolf. Season 6. Morgan has made his position clear. No killing. It's a philosophy the show invites the audience to debate, and Carol is on the other side of that debate, hard and fast. That much is understandable. What isn't understandable is what she's willing to do to win the argument. The wolf is restrained. He's not going anywhere. Morgan is standing between Carol and a prisoner, not a threat, not an active attack, and Carol decides that Morgan is an acceptable casualty in the transaction.
This could have waited. It should have.
She moves to go through him. Literally. She tries to kill a member of her own group, someone who has fought beside her, someone the group trusts because he is inconveniencing her objective. The group finds out. Nobody really reckons with it. The wolf storyline moves on. Carol's arc moves on. And this moment gets absorbed into the larger Season 6 chaos, like it was just another beat in a busy episode. but stop and sit with what actually happened. Carol attempted to murder Morgan. Not a stranger, not an enemy. Morgan, because he wouldn't get out of her way. The show frames this as ideological conflict, as two survival philosophies colliding, but strip the framing away, and what remains is Carol deciding that her judgment again, as in the prison, as with Karen and David, supersedes everyone else's right to exist in disagreement with her. This is where the pattern stops being deniable. She's done this before, she'll do it again, and she's starting to know it. This ranks here because the victim survives. What comes above it, the victims didn't get that mercy. But the next entry isn't about violence. It's about something colder than violence. It's about performance. 3. The Alexandria Housewife. Performance. Seasons 5 to 6. This one doesn't have a single scene. That's what makes it the most unsettling entry on this list. From the moment Carol walks through Alexandria's gates, she puts on a costume. Cardigans, casseroles, wide eyes and soft voice and not quite there smiles. She plays the harmless, grateful survivor baking cookies, making small talk, memorizing the layout of every room she enters. While she smiles, she is cataloging weapons. While she makes friends, she is identifying threats. While Alexandria trusts her, she is recruiting Rick and Daryl into a plan to steal guns from the community that took them in a community that, at that point, has given them nothing but safety and kindness. The group benefits from this. The show rewards it. Carol's infiltration of Alexandria is framed as tactical genius, and it is. But tactical genius deployed against people who haven't earned that suspicion is something else entirely. The Alexandrians aren't Terminus. They aren't the governor. They are frightened, sheltered people trying to hold something good together, and Carol decides, unilaterally, that they can't be trusted with the truth of who she is, and then uses their trust as a weapon against them. This changed everything about how the show framed Carol. Before Alexandria, she was a survivor making hard calls. After Alexandria, she is someone who can manufacture a version of herself on demand and use it to extract whatever the situation requires from whoever is standing in front of her. Fans never forgot this. Not because it was evil, because it was so precise, so practiced, so completely without guilt. The show never holds her accountable for it. And that's the most disturbing thing about it, because the people she manipulated never even knew they'd been manipulated. What sits above this is the moment the mask finally broke. Not for the group, for Carol herself. 2. Killing Lizzie, Season 4, The Grove. There is no version of this entry that moves quickly. This is the one that changed the show's relationship with its own darkness permanently. Lizzie has killed Mika. She is standing over her sister's body, proud, certain she did the right thing. She is not a monster in her own mind. She is a child who broke in a world designed to break people, and nobody caught her in time. Carol has to make the call. There is no one else. Tyrese can't do it. The situation won't wait. Carol is the only person in that field who understands what has to happen next. She tells Lizzie to look at the flowers. And she pulls the trigger.
Flowers?
The show frames this as mercy, as the only possible choice, as Carol carrying the unbearable so that others don't have to. And in the immediate logic of the apocalypse, it is all of those things. But this is a countdown about villain moments. And here is the villain framing the show earns and then walks away from. Carol had weeks with Lizzie. She saw the signs. She saw Lizzie feeding walkers through the prison fence, saw her relationship with death curdle into something dangerous long before they ever reached that grove. The killing of Mika is not only Lizzie's failure, it is a failure of every adult who saw what Lizzie was becoming and managed it instead of addressing it. Carol managed it. Right up until the moment management wasn't enough. Fans never forgot this moment. Not the line, not the field, not the stillness of it. This is where the series crossed a line it couldn't come back from, not because Carol pulled the trigger, but because the show dared to ask whether she should have pulled it sooner. And then, never answered. This didn't just end Lizzie. It ended the idea that Carol's protector instinct was without cost. The entry above this isn't about one death. It's about all of them. 1. Carol's kill list. Season 6. The same sky. There is a notebook. Carol keeps it hidden. And in it, she has written down every single person she has ever killed, a running tally she updates, carries with her, and cannot stop adding to. She doesn't show it to anyone. She doesn't confess it to the group. She sits alone with a number that keeps growing, and does the only thing left available to her: she counts. This is the moment the show finally says out loud what it spent 6 seasons building toward. Carol did not become a protector. She became something the apocalypse needed: efficient, ruthless, willing, and the cost of being that thing is a list that won't stop getting longer. Every name on that list has a context. Karen and David, sick, defenseless. The wolf in the prison restrained. The Terminus survivors routed. Lizzie, a child she helped raise. The saviors she burns alive in the satellite outpost, before Negan's name means anything to her, before she has any real intelligence about who they are or what they've done. She kills them in their sleep, efficiently, without hesitation. And then she writes their names down. Here is what makes this the #1 entry above every act of cruelty, above every manipulation, above every hard call dressed up as necessity. Carol knows. She has always known. The list isn't guilt dressed up as record-keeping. It's an accounting she can't stop making because some part of her understands that what she's done cannot be categorized as heroism anymore, and she doesn't know what category is left. The show was never the same after this. Not because Carol stopped being Carol, but because the list made it impossible to watch her the same way again. Every future act of violence now had a ledger behind it. Every future choice carried the weight of every prior name. This changed everything. Not for the group, they never see the list. For the audience. For every fan who spent seasons cheering her on and suddenly found themselves looking at a tally and wondering which side of it they'd been standing on. The moral verdict is the one the show refuses to deliver cleanly. Carol is not a villain, but she has done villain things, in villain quantities, with villain efficiency, and the only difference between her and the people Rick's group calls monsters is that she kept her monsters pointed outward, until the list, until the moment she sat down alone and started counting. Fans never forgot this moment, because it didn't ask them to condemn her. It asked them to reckon with how long they'd been cheering. The list didn't just expose Carol, it exposed what the show had been asking us to excuse for 6 seasons. These were the times Carol Pelletier was the actual villain of her own story. Which one still sits wrong with you? The ones she chose, or the ones she never admitted to? Did we miss one? Drop it below and we might build the next video around it. Subscribe if you're not done figuring out whether Carol was ever really one of the good guys. Click here to watch Deaths That Still Haven't Been Forgiven in The Walking Dead. It hits just as hard.